Hey guys, Vern Dahnke here. And today the question is, what are my top 5 lenses and why do I use those lenses in particular? Let's find out.
Click, 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 click and a pick it. Click, 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 click and a pick it. Click, 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 click and a pick it. Click, click, click.
So these are my weapons of choice. And we'll start out with the Canon 18 to 135. It has an f-stop of 3.5 to 5.6. That's my street lens. And then we go to the Big Daddy, the big money lens, the FE 2.8 70 to 200. This is the Sony lens. And then we go to the Zeiss Batis 85mm 1.8 and the Sony FE 1.8 50mm. Those are my weapons of choice. And also on the camera is the 28mm f2 Sony lens. Alright, so let's start out with the first lens that I owned. And it came on this Canon 760D camera. This was my kit lens. And this one is the 18 to 135. And boy, out of the 5 lenses, I'm going to say this probably ranks the third. And you're going to laugh because it's a kit lens. But this lens is so sharp, you would be surprised for a kit lens. And the thing that I found is with this rig, I can move it as fast as I need to capture a street shot and probably get 95% of my shots that are usable. 95%. And for me, to have a zoom lens on the street is indispensable. This is how I choose to shoot my street photography. I like to sneak in and I like to get the shot without disturbing the moment. And I feel that if I had a shorter focal length lens, it would be harder to do. And I wouldn't capture the feel of the moment as much as I do with my little zoom lens here. And this has just been a killer setup for me. This is my favorite setup. And the other thing is, if you think of the cost of this, $800 versus, $6,000 for a Sony camera with the 70 to 200 2.8? Which one would you feel safer out on the street using? And if you ever dropped it or something happened, God forbid, right? So for me, it just works. As long as I'm not in low light, this kills it. It just kills it. This is the best $800 to $900 I've ever spent. So the next lens we're going to talk about, and the Canon lens is very similar to this. This is the Sony 50mm. Which one is this? This is f1.8. And when I first bought this lens, and I just had my mirrorless camera, and I'd taken it to a carnival in Bacolod, Philippines, and I thought, I don't know what settings to use on this. It's a mirrorless camera. I'm new to mirrorless. What do I do? And so, just for the heck of it, I put it into automatic mode, and I shot at night. And the photos were so amazing. They were so clean. They were so colorful. And everything just dialed in so perfect with this lens that I almost was happy without doing any editing of the photos. That's how amazing the photos came out, the night shots. How good with this 50mm lens. So for me, for night photography, this lens is about the shortest focal length that I like to use if I'm still trying to sneak in and capture the moment. If I'm any shorter, then I'm like this close to the person's face, and they know I'm there, right? They can sense that I'm not there. Even if they don't look at me, they're like, there's somebody there. What are they doing, right? And then they look and the shot's blown. So for me, this is the minimum focal length, but yet it's still wide enough to capture the moment of a scene. So this has just been a great lens. This is well worth the money. And I think this lens was $500, which is relatively inexpensive for Sony lenses. Comparing, they are super, super expensive. So if you're going to get a lens for your Sony and you want kind of an overall dynamic lens that will kick ass in the daytime and rock and roll at night, this is your lens right here. This is probably one of the first lenses to buy, the 51.8. So if I have a lens that's near and dear to my heart, it has to be this Zeiss 85 1.8 Batis. And why do I say that? The reason is before, when I started doing fashion model photography, I was still kind of learning, and I was using my zoom lens, and nothing looked right. Everything, the colors, the bokeh, the model just didn't look right. And I'll tell you what, once I put on this lens, the magic happened. The features looked delicate on the people. The bokeh was creamy and just out of this world. Everything balanced in. The legs looked longer, the face looked thinner. It just had everything that fashion photography demands. And when I put this lens on my camera and I started taking photos, people noticed that my photos looked so much differently than everyone else's photos. And this is my secret weapon right here. This is why. It isn't my edit, it isn't my camera. Maybe it is a little bit, but the majority of it I attribute to this Zeiss lens. This was worth every penny, and it was not a cheap lens. For a fixed lens, I want to say it was 76,000 pesos, maybe 1,500 bucks, 1,600 bucks. It was so much money that I'm like, oh my gosh. But I tell you what, if I were to buy a lens again, this would be the lens. This is the killer lens to own. So as I was upgrading my gear, I kept finding a common theme. Anytime I got to a low light situation, I needed a zoom. I needed a zoom at events. I needed a zoom. Anytime there was action, I needed a really killer lens, because in low light, if anything's moving, chances are you're not going to get the shot if you don't have the absolute best lens. And so, as much as a hard thing was for me to spend the money to get the lens, I bought the lens, because this is a tool that you've got to have. If you're going to do low light photography indoors and there's any movement at all, you need the best lens possible, the best zoom. If you need a zoom in low light, this is it. You've got to have this. This is an indispensable tool. You can't not have it. And the reason is you're going to miss half your shots, or they're going to suck. So that's where the camera companies kind of got you. In the low light, you have to have the best tool, and they charge for the best tool, and you're going to pay for the best tool. And this is it. This is the indoor go-to lens for Sony. And Canon has the same thing. It's a white lens, and it's just a little bit cheaper, but not much. And so if you're going to be serious about photography, if you're going to get into photography, you're going to have the best zoom you can buy, and this is it. And it's worth every damn penny that you spend on it, and you'll have it probably for the rest of your life. They say you date your camera bodies, but you marry your lenses. So this, if you don't drop it and you take care of it, will probably outlast you. And last but not least, we're using the lens, the last lens I'll talk about. It is the f2.0 28 millimeter. Now, when I bought that lens, I originally was going to use it for street photography. I was trying to find a 35 millimeter to try street photography with, and I couldn't find the 35 that I wanted at the price range that I was wanting to pay. And I came across this lens, and it wasn't a cheap lens. I think it was like 500 bucks. Sony lenses are damned expensive. And what I've discovered is it's a great vlogging lens. It's not too wide, it's not too narrow, it's just right. You wouldn't want it any wider, and you wouldn't want the length any narrower. And so it just seemed to work out perfect, and that is going to be my main vlogging lens. So the 28 millimeter 2.0 by Sony. So that's it for my lenses. Maybe that gives you an idea of what I use and why I use it. And every new lens that I would buy was bought because I had a problem. I needed a different tool. And so all your lenses are tools, and they will enable you to do different things. Some people only use one or two lenses, and that's okay for them. But for me, I like different tools to be able to do different things. It gives me more options. So if my videos have helped you, please click a like and hit a subscribe, and that will help me on my journey. Thank you very much.